Well, hey there mateys, this is Discovery Scouts of Pirates of the Caribbean film series here. Welcome to the Q&A answer. Welcome back to the Q&A answer series. Woo! Tonight is Sunday evening. Yoo-hoo! Sunday evening. So we're gonna talk about for the memories today about the 2010 today arriving in Honolulu, Hawaii, when the Black Pearl just arrived from the harbor from Los Angeles, California, and so sometimes sometimes it takes about 35 days when the Black Pearl was set out in the Magician turning to the sunset, and we're making an assured about the almost 8 years later. We're caught about the Raw Marshal today of Gore Fitzmaskey, as mentioned for the reaction, and Jerry Kaiman films, and like the same about the first film in the movie on Stranger Ties. So we're gonna work to do the ones at the very moment about reactors becoming called the Concorde, which is the British Royal Navy as the Great Britain, and the French also just started becoming to stealing ships. They had to do the La Concorde and be becoming pirate ships. Everty's Blackbeard, stolen from the French ships, became the Queen Anne's Revenge, and they were battling to saving the slaves people for African. They were destroying the two slave ships, and they were capturing in the Britain ships. They're releasing the back to the United States and America, but when in the inland North Carolina, and Blackbeard ships ran aground and tried to sink it. It just literally have carrying about the 40 guns. It was just shrank. It was just sunk down to the Davy Jones, sunk down to the depths, and became to the wreck on the seven seas, beside in the northern side of the Caribbean seas, and the crossing there to the Atlantic Ocean. But if you feel like the very excitement, it's also they really see it's about why they working about the reaction on the end of Beadley, North Carolina, when the Queen Anne's Revenge ran aground and sank into the depths underwater was abandoning. Which is about the 1718 Blackbeard died. It could be about the pirate states ever wanted to be the notorious pirates forever, but when the British Royal Navy was victory, when it came to decided to the adventurers had sloops concluded in about small ships. Every motion, a lieutenant captain was killed Blackbeard. Every motion, all the captures hanging by the neck until dead. With reaction to do becoming called the resurrection in 1720s, when the Blackbeards are resurrected, and so to the different second ship and the second pirate ships called the Queen Anne's Revenge. And there's the type of about the 30 guns, Greek fires, and 40 battleships and frigate. And it was very hard to the can in the 1720s, like some of the about the search of the Gold air cruises and search of the damage chest, war against piracy, versus the about very most important about takes 30 years later for a long time. But Blackbeard decides to find out about sailing through the Fountain with Youth. Those are the unnamed island of the Fountain with Youth. But when the Spanish Empire was arrival into the Jolly Roger, most of the eliminate enemy pirates, most of the undecided really emotions, is most of the reaction became the enemy ships. It's all it has to do is about the very most important about very important. All the things that really could feel watchable and very awkward. it's at the very most of the scenes about how spelled entirely through into the prophecies by exception for God, through the gifts in the necklace for church for now, for the Catholic, for Lutheran. It is exception for the British Empire, Spanish, French, and Dutch, and the enemy pirates. Mostly they have do. When Blackbeard's and his crew was his daughter Angelica teach was turning to the smoke into black, and smoke everything, every motion to be turns to the zombie, to transformations into darkness and night. But they have a for merciful thing, and Blackbeard's descended to after the war against piracies might be descended to the counters for the 1730s, and it's after the adios for Spanish Navy, and when his sword of Trident was supernatural and powerful, was Turnington shrank the bottle, and they also all the crewmen was every killing soldiers at the sea, from Navy to the port. That thing is about putting onto the Blackbeard's cabin, the tying over and smushing the movable for like it's storms, thunderous, and they're trying to free for all, like some of those about the villainous pirate. But the same thing about the searching for the fountain with youth, they're all gonna kill mermaids, tying up to kill the mermaids was dying in the sun. What's a vicinity? It was the woman turns into the mermaids for not into humans, but his turning to the bones from human body was every motion to kill every sea monster of the sea, whilst the hole on the water was turned into deep. But Blackbeard's find out to walk into the fountain was everything be molded to be saying is reaction to do help before as a difficult as it could be made out of forever to be a provocation to the for a searching for the going back to the ships to sail the seas to Hispaniola. They have a long time about notoriously pirate forever, but when Santiago was shrank, was abandoned, was about 200 years, when the Palestinian died in about 180 years to the Spanish treasure about Agua Divida. That's where Blackbeard says to believing the Edward teach being ruthless, evil, criminal, intent, justice, and pure, and finally ruthless thing to the pirate's life. He was thinking about the Blackbeards. Also, they have the Jolly Roger, and if it concluded about the blockade to Charleston, if usually they're becoming known to about the various ships there, they look like about the type of the galleon. Also, they have frigates and fully battleships. If the proper up at about the builds, it takes 6 to 7 days. If wisely is that happens, it means to misunderstand after the saying. If emotion to go helpful, could be most to be different of a kind about really most importance about same kind. If better than the same thing, better that about a difficulty very hard about his ships, and he decides to the counter in the 1746 was attacked the Barbossa's crew, and when the Pintel Spaghetti was enema for the third film, and Roy the Mutag and Marty stays in the Tortuga when Barbossa was arriving from Hispaniola on tonight, was searching to the fountain of youth, was Jack the monkey and Cotton's para was left behind before he died. But the Black Pearl was attacked by the Queen as revenge. Was it the Blackbeard? What is this? What in the myth captured the Black Pearl was 1746. The one of them about the 2400 times. His sword of trident was rigging through the pearl was rolling and boiling in sea. It was a sea rolling thing about the pearl thing. It was the awkward thing to the third to fourth film. Was it the installment? Was it to be capturing the pearl? Was ever the during the fountain with you? Was it the quest? Was ever the lost his leg and his sword? The monkey was trapped the bottle by Blackbeard, and the pearl too, and the Cotton's para, and it cause and some because about the wind stuff, and Blackbeard's sword turns into pointing out that the pearl was growing down, cracking, and turning to the bottle that was the supernatural powers. Was it the transform into bottle? Was it trapped? Was it the imprisonment? And he puts into his cabin was tying in, and he has his keys, and Barbossa lost his pearl from Jack Sparrow, and the departing from the British Navy was arriving back to the London to see the King George at Taverns, but it takes 4 years later on for the Jack Sparrows arrive. Think about the London to sneak in around. If a mystical the Gibbs was Honorable Justice Smith, he was a disgust on the honor. It's surprised to see the Jack Sparrow and the Gibbs was riding the paddy wagon, and he was certainly capturing. Jack was also the sit and chains on the chairs on King George's table, and they have the meeting. They're meeting about the bad guys do the wearing the villain soldiers. It was that concluded about the last 5 minutes, and Jack was appearances of the losses map from South Fang. Was it about from 30 years? It was the emotionals of a really concluding of actually being started and startled for meets us back with his new old friend Hector Barbossa. He became privateer from pirate. Was also they concluded talks about the pearl. When Barbossa lost his pearl, was confronting it in no reasons. He was also been about seemingly sunk nearby. But Jack's very frustrated, lost his pearl, and when the soldier came, he was also to escape. He trying to run away. Tries to run away. He'll be out there. Also, they are escaped. It tries everything, and really climbs over the stays over there. If it working out all the time and no reasons, and when it also just jumps when they swing through it into the old woman, and she's also kissed his neck. He didn't do that for her. He kisses the necklace. He eats the necklace. He runs. He's chasing from the courageous. He gives a courageous chase. Like soldiers did. He would actually Jack was searching for the Taverns and Captain Scott's daughters, his dad. It just allergically when Captain Teague says go in the quest to the Fountain with Youth, and finds out that Jack's daughter was disgust, was stolen everything. He was a princess. He decided to very miserable everything, but he would conclude it nearly nearby. It's the most difficult. The name of the captain's daughter was fighting for also they have a very difficulty when a lot of people are partying in the tavern yards. When he meets Angelica from disgust, and his father was recognizing his resurrector from this for 30 years. He decidedly from for inlet for frigate ran aground. It became fully battleships, frigates. They look like about the Indian Man, the galleon, like the Pearl did, but a lot of soldiers was invaded to the taverns beside the rum's room, like some of those the pubs. His reaction to do his escape down to the underwater, and she would talk about the mermaid's tear, like the conquest. But he shot it by quartermaster, and he was a zombie. He was a zombie officer, and Gibbs finds out Barbossa. He became from pirate to privateer for British Empire. It was a lieutenant officer, Theodore Groves of Gillette, and all of the soldiers scheduling the Age of Providence from Age of Surprise. Same lasted about 36 guns. When the fountain came out, the Gibbs just throw in it. He just burn it. He just literally just has to he's here. He is unwelcome to the Navy. When Jack welcome from the shooting for the dots, he was on the board. He was on the board the Blackbeard ships, and he starts working in the morning. Was while they working the sailing stuff, while working during the sails, his squad says the Queen Anne's revenge, and Blackbeard, he is evil. When the skeleton has the cup and the spear, and he named the back in the ships under there, and zombie officers works like the coach did, like all of the Molly crew did, is really awful, really bad. It has no idea. Also, they're saying if usually they'll work it out for issues, and takes about the 8 hours the minimum. When Angelica, his father figured it out. He sneaks down back into the 15 gun decks under there. Once the down there is awkwardly, she has to become bag woman, and when the Angelica finds out what his father did, and somebody stumped in like the zombie officers finds the hunting stuff being hunted. When the Jack did, also they have one-legged man. Bob also did, and he didn't realize what he'd done about last 4 winters ago. Barbossa and his new ship arrived for the HMS Providence. Gibbs did. He became nothing nowhere else in the Mole. He's behind the pointed album by Gibbs. When the Spanish ships, like three Neptunes, when the Spanish galleons, they arrived for the Fountain with Youth, and when the British Empire was ready to fire, it stops, and he came following to the Spanish ships, and when the night is here, Jack and his crew against the Blackbeard zombie crews, and he will start fighting. He will start victory. He opens it up disturbingly, and he walks there. Out there, he became to see Mr. Sparrows here. He is at his ships. He was drunk. He is otherwise to see his sword was initially the moving like a net like snakes. If it technically like moving around the mutiny. His sword was putting up. He puts the swords up, and his power for what the sails did in the dark dimension to 20%, and he also chainsaw making a sound of noise, and he twisted his Molly crew was also able to stop from the zombie crew, saving his life just animately. When Jack came up disturbingly, they came slow down as much as they can, and Cook just burned by the Greek fire. When the Blackbeard was confronted, her daughter was hearing that for his confrontation for Jack was every motion a little bit supernatural power for Jack's doll was the head and the chest. His brains almost burned his skull. When the Barbosa's kept to the speech was to figure out the Gibbs says mermaids. He listened to the quiet yes, and when the Theodore says White Cap Day, and we arrived there, and Angelica came for the dance from Scromded like the guitar. Was it the deleted scenes? It was the behind the scenes about the Honolulu, Hawaii. They have the filming on Stranger Tides. Was it the 2010? Was it July 7, 2010? On in the night during the summer times. It was also the easier than about the most of the difficulties. When Angelica was sexual waste for Jack, as notices it by the finds a way his father was not in his cabin, and he opens the cabin. As she opens his cabin, went to see the bottle of the ships there was also to have the 50 bottles of ships, and including the Black Pearl in the bottle was after the attack of the last winters ago, when the Barbosa's crew was also being killed by the Blackbeard, and then his net. It was the difficulty, and mostly the Jack the Monkey scares the Jack off, and Angelica wouldn't be to find out she's not his father. She's not her father. She can do evil her father did. And Blackbeard arrived in English for White Cat Bay. When they see the living the mermaids there, it's right on the closer to also the deeper than about 5,000 feet in the depths. And with the 3 boats in there, and the rest of them all of the landed the beach. It was scenes about the fire them for the torch, and they're singing to the My Jolly Sailor boat. When the Tamara came out of the boat from underwater, she's also be happy, courteous, very cute, and very evil enemy and attacker, and furious. She was been right out there right now, and she became attackers things, fighting against the pirates and zombie crews, and there was the Malays and zombie crews was on the Blackbeard ships, and if Queen Anne's Revenge, just Greek fire scares the mermaids away, and one of them the Malay crews was also to have whipping over by the mermaids. There have been casualties, wounded or dead, and Jack was explosion destruction of a lighthouse. When Philippe almost kidnapped by Serena underwater, was also about one casualty. One of the Serena was turned into human from the whale tail. When Barbosa's during the rain and his crew, just formally, it was a concordantly, and that was they're hearing about the scream that the mermaids did, and they're pulling out causing back by sunk by mermaids, and mostly they have a sticky whip sticky to pull in to the HMS Providence that's sinking down the depths for his rest of his crew. When Blackbeard was searching, walking up to the fountain with youth, and he walks in the water, And it wasn't exactly what is it about what they did when Angelica and Jack and Philip was also to can't believe it. It's so much to be amazements and be most monumental as forever to be like it, forever to be difficulties, and for as if for once, it could be about according to the Jack Steel to find to the Santiago, to something about the rocks. When meeting the Barbosa was up there one night, when Jack and Barbosa was searching up for the Spanish camp, and it was at that ideal with this long stories about for the last 6 years. It was the difficulties. It was the same like about the incident of palm grave tree, and they were like saying, and Jack Barbosa was captured by the Spanish officers and soldiers, and he was talking about the peg leg did when after Barbosa was attacking by Blackbeards. It was the cannon fire from the Queen Anne's Revenge to the Black Pearl, and what he did about the broke his leg, he would lose his ship when the Blackbeard shrunk his Jack ships. There were the revenge of the Blackbeard what he did, but he would climb back in behind it on the palm tree. He was tying it to throwing it the ropes. He was swinging around, jumping and throwing around like it, catching it. When the Spanish just find a way for the one pirate, he was rescued by Theodore Groves, and he just escaping from the Spanish camp. When continuing but when the Blackbeards after the Philip capture, and Serena almost died, and it was to the tying up for the son did. But her father was recognizing for the Philip Swift there, love of his Serena, also to have the true love's kiss. When the murderers kissed Philip, Jack arrived back to continue to give it his compass. He gave to his complicated Jack gave his gifts was it his compass to arrive back to seeing the bottle of ships there, and to save the Black Pearl, and Jack arrival to the fountain refused. He was down there into the caves, and it been arrived back to about 15 to 10 minutes. If it thinks about it, takes a lot of the break time, and he found that the Aqua di Vida. It was the 2 cups there. He sneaks from his camp. It slows as they can, and they have the once more. If they ever have the most experiences, like dinghy for making the noise, and Aqua di Vida, the water was moving. He goes up there into the fountain. It was just so much really beautiful. It looks like nobody there. They know anything what happened there about the last 30 years. It was a concluded Barbosa invaded onto his soldiers with his crew of the HMS Providence, and they fight against us from the Blackbeard's crew, and they were mostly about distracted by the fight in the fountain. Then, like it says, Spanish arrived. When the Spanish orders there, he killed Theodore Groves, and he just ordered it to destroy the profane temple, and Angelica gave her steals 2 cups from Spaniard. What he did, he stomps on it, he threw the water, and when the Spanish soldiers was almost destroying the four rocks, the thing to kill every zombie pirate did. Whoever did they have the Blackbeards killed, poisoned by Barbosa's stabs, he had an idea was drinking to the fountain, and his daughter was drinking all over the water to the fountain, he just stops. He just stops moving. He just twisting before it ever killed Blackbeard did. Her father was crying, was sad, and when Jack's tying up her back, but she's dropping off of her. The landed in the island there was unnamed, where the Jack was leaving his true love's kiss, and he has to go. And Barbossa was controlling for his new ship, and Barbossa was his stolen from Blackbeard's. His sword of the Trident was claimed by the Blackbeard's crew. Quartermaster, Gunner the Human, and Master the Arm was dead. It's mostly like he says, and Sword of the Trident was under control, and his old nest was destroyed, and he would arrive back to the Tortuga for make way, and the Telebine the next year. But I'll be right back, mateys. So I'll be right back. Gonna have to take a break. It takes about 5 minutes. See you soon.